Hi everyone, it's Sheila Zilinsky, the Weekend Vigilante, filling in for Lisa Haven while she's on holidays. Check out my handiwork at weekendvigilante.com. Well, I want to jump right into the show today. The God pill. Is death now optional? DNA editing, designer babies, and genetic modification. It is certainly the days of Noah 2.0. Can billions of dollars worth of high-tech research succeed in making death perhaps optional? Why are the super rich plowing billions into the booming immortality industry? Imagine a world in which you're 90 years old and you're nowhere near middle-aged. An app on your phone has hacked your DNA code so you know exactly when to go to the doctor. You know exactly when to receive that gene therapy for the prevention of all the diseases you don't yet have. A microchip in your skin. It sends you a signal if you're at risk for even developing a wrinkle. So you can step out and hot-footed out of the sun and sand to your dermatologist. Every evening you sync your brain mapping device with the cloud. So even if you were caught up in a fatal accident, you would still be able to cheat death. Every detail of your entire life would be simply downloaded to one of the perfect silicon versions that you've had made of yourself, ensuring that you last until at least your 1000th birthday. This may sound like science fiction, folks, but it could soon be your fate. Provided you can afford it, of course. If current research develops the way it's going, the Xanadu of the future, the uber super rich, they will not be able to simply buy the best things in life. They'll be able to buy life itself by transforming themselves into a bioengineered super race of hybrid superhumans capable of living, if not forever, then for vastly longer than the current life expectancy of 78 years. The science of turning back the clock has never been more advanced. In Boston, think of this, a drug capable of reversing half a lifetime of aging in mice is about to be tested on humans. What could go wrong? In a medical trial monitored by NASA, our favorite alphabet soup company, of course. No nefarious stuff going on there. The fellow who heads it up, Professor David Sinclair, he's from Australia's University of New South Wales. Well, what does he do daily? He doses himself with 500 milligrams of the drug daily. Prior to taking the pill, Sinclair was in the same physical shape as a 57-year-old, but now he's a young, spry 31-year-old. Take Dmitry Itskov, the Russian billionaire founder of the Life Extension 2045 initiative, who's paying scientists to map the human brain so our minds can be decanted into a computer and downloaded to a robot body. Forget Avatar. That's no longer things of movies, folks. Or how about Jun Yoon, a physician who said at an anti-aging symposium just 2 weeks ago, he said, aging is simply a programming error encoded in our DNA. If something's encoded, well, you can crack the code. He said, thermodynamically, there should be no reason that we cannot defer entropy indefinitely. We can end aging forever, he said. And then there's good old PayPal founder Peter Thiel, who has a reported whopping net worth of $3 billion. Well, he reportedly drinks young blood. He's also offered to pay enormous funding to gerontologists making leaps and bounds in rejuvenation and, of course, biotechnology in anti-aging research, using blood, of course. Of course, the best known element of the immortality industry is cryogenic freezing. Despite its reputation as the last resort of wealthy cranks, it remains in business at the Alcor Chronics facility in Arizona, where 197 corpses have already been preserved in liquid nitrogen at the temperature of around minus 196 Celsius, the temperature of Hillary Clinton's heart, since it was founded in 1972. Worldwide, there have been thousands of people signed up for cryogenic services, but the service doesn't come cheap. Full body freezing costs a whopping $250,000. A $250,000 will have you packed on ice. You can also have your head cut off and frozen for around $85,000 euro. And it sure does have a list of the who's who lining up to be put on ice. They say dying of old age might one day seem preposterous. And just this week, who's back in the news? Good old the poster boy for transhumanism, Ray Kurzweil, head of Google Engineering, said this year on record that he expects humans will be able to back up our brains to the cloud by the year 2020. Wow, that's 3 years away. The most interesting thing for your neocortex to extend itself as synthetic neocortex is in the cloud, Kurzweil said. So ultimately our thinking will be predominated by the synthetic cortex. At that point, he says, we will be kind of a hybrid, cloud-based hybrid. So I guess all your thinking is done in the cloud. Scientists launched a proposal to create synthetic human genome, the entire 3 billion letter DNA recipe for life coiled in human chromosomes. But now scientists want to take it one step further, over the Rubicon of no return, of course, by writing it now. Our consortium has been proposed to devise ways to assemble human DNA in the laboratory. After all, what could go wrong with making a human yourself, right? There's no question of humans being made, says entrepreneur Craig Venter, who helped accelerate the Human Genome Project. The backers of the new project said HGP Wright, the name of the project, want to experiment with the biological machinery of virus resistance for the suppression of tumor formation, and they want to work out how to do it cheaply. Oh, wow, tumor formation. That explains wanting to make a human being. Oh, well, tumor formation. Well, I can see that being completely validated then. For a minute there, I was reminded of the outlandish Italian neurosurgeon Sergio Canvaro. What does he say? He wants to do a full body transplant. He told Business Insider, I want to create a full death experience with the first full body transplant in person. Yeah, well, Mary Shelley wrote about that same thing in 1818 with a little classic we call, can you spell Frankenstein? And back to CRISPR. CRISPR causes horrific, unknown genetic mutations. CRISPR, as I said, is all the rage of gene editing, but guess what? Now we find out it can cause thousands of unwanted mutations. That's what doctors are claiming from Stanford and the University of Iowa, who recently published their findings on the topic. Imagine going to the doctor for a simple vision restoring treatment and walking out with a life-threatening disease. But it gets worse. How's that? Glad you asked. In the case published in the journal, there are approximately 5,000 mutations, and those mutations could create something far worse than cancer. Genetic mutations, folks, can be horrific, and now scientists claim to be ready for human trials? No thanks. CRISPR is dangerous technology, and this study proves that it is not safe for humans. Yet Big Pharma is pushing the agenda of mutating DNA, and thus the study, I'm sure, will be swept under the rug, along with whatever happens to mankind as a result of unwanted genetic mutations. Christian Today ran a major story about gene editing, about transhumanism, and even the upcoming arrival of techno sapiens back in 2009. And that should have had the church in a fervent uproar, but instead, it was crickets chirping. That's right, for the most part, Christians have paid scant attention to the implications of this. That's right, no one bats an eye about this devilish transhumanism movement, changing men into monsters. Think about it, God created man, and now man is trying to create God, or at least the God pill, immortality, because hey, we're just getting bogged down by these antiquated, outdated body of ours. They need an upgrade, not a tune-up, an overhaul. Superhumans are sexy, stronger, smarter than that old relic that God himself made. So big deal. What did God really create anyway? Only mankind and the universe and everything in it. But that's so last century. God, you got it wrong, and now it's time for us to correct those mistakes. So we'll take it from here. It is forbidden to create a creature that is of mixing species. In fact, the issue of mixing species had serious biblical ramifications. Just check out what it says in Genesis 6. I will blot out man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, creeping thing and fowl of the air, for it grieves me that I have made them. Noah's generation sinned sexually, but it was expressed in the mixing of species. In 2015, several groundbreaking experiments took place in genetic engineering, mad scientists in laboratories, cloning cattle, genetically engineering human DNA. They were the first to even incubate antibodies against an Ebola strain. In the same year, scientists at Duke University announced they successfully boosted brain size in mice by using human DNA as a catalyst. Also at Duke, kidneys from aborted human fetuses were transplanted into rats in order to determine if human organs could be grown in animals, solving the problem, I guess, of organ donations. In one particular disturbing case, geneticists in China, they modified the DNA of human embryos, concentrating on the gene responsible for a potentially fatal blood disorder. However, in their final report, what did they find? Oh, surprise, surprise, a number of very unintended mutations. You know what? All this manipulation of genes, it brushes up against eugenics, the intentional improving of the human race by scientific control. Eugenics were first espoused by the Nazis and other racist ideologies as a method of creating a master race, like Lebensborn, the Nazi breeding program, like Margaret Sanger and her pal Julian Huxley, Mr. and Mrs. Eugenesis. It's no wonder she founded Planned Parenthood, where she can continue to do her diabolical research. And lastly, last week, British researchers got a green light to genetically modify human embryos. Oh, forget GMO frankenfoods. That's right, it's GMO humans. All of this, folks, takes on very dark spiritual overtones. Don't let this growing transhumanist movement convince you that the human race can evolve beyond its current physical and mental limitations by means of this mad science and technology. Let me summarize by saying this: genetic editing is like playing God. But after all, what's wrong with that? Thank you for tuning in to this program today. Again, check me out, Sheila Zilinsky, the Weekend Vigilante, over there at weekendvigilante.com. God bless.